So you are trying to contextualize this conversation as safe versus risk?
It's a part of survival, because you're not going to take a risk if you're not going to walk. You said there's a pit. You're going to avoid the pit. You're not going to take a risk. You're not going to build a bridge. You're not going to do anything. You're going to.
But those are two different things, though. Those are two different things. You walk outside, there's a pit, right? You remember it, and you walk around the pit. I mean, you don't stop the adventure. In your scenario, you're saying, well, there's a pit there, and so society says there's a pit right outside the gates, so never go outside the gates. I mean, that is a true thing that happens. You know what I mean? The structure can become too much, that it becomes tyrannical. I agree with that. So the society would say, look, if you go outside the gates, there's a pit and you will die, right? But there's a third case scenario, which is, okay, there is a pit outside, but I can go outside and I can build a bridge, or I can go around the pit.
Or I can jump into the pit.
So that would be different than the scenario you're proposing. Because I'm saying on the bottom end, survival is, I'm just saying don't die. And I can't, I just can't see how we could let that go. I mean, that's why I tried to ask you if you were talking about metaphysical versus physical. But if we're talking about the physical world, then the top of that hierarchy is don't die. I mean, that's it.
But what I guess I'm saying is there's
no changing that.
There is changing that, Dave. That's a part
of the physical world.
But listen,
either you're alive or you're dead. I mean, there's no I can't. I mean, maybe I'm too limited of a human being, but
listen. This is good, because we're getting pulling to the very, very core of this thing, right? Because they want to push the limits of I could die, right?
Right.
So if we're holding on to the wall of I could die, which again I'm not suggesting, but if we're holding on to the wall of this is the thing, there's a whole number of things that's not going to happen. No one would have invented an airplane because the first million airplanes crashed and they died. The first couple of trains, if you read about the train history, a lot of people died, right? So if the wall is I could die, that still becomes the thing. And again, I'm not comfortable with it either. I'm not comfortable with, taking what I call unnecessary risk, because I'm attached to don't die as well. But understand.
Right, but those are two things. I just want to say that those are two different things. I could die and don't die. Those are two different things. I understand that I could die. That's just a risk assessment. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't go for I could die. I'm okay with that, because you have to push the limit. I agree with that. I'm saying don't actually be dead. That's what I'm saying. That's the line for me. It's not don't push the limit because you could die. I'm not going for could. I'm going with will.
Yeah, but you don't know. That's the whole
line for me is will.
But that's the risk taking. You don't know.
But I'm saying memory, which is what I'm talking about, the past, tells you where everybody who went in the pit is dead, because there's crocodiles or whatever down there. I don't know what's down there.
I guess
but everybody in your little clan came outside of the gates and went in this pit thing, and no one ever came back. Okay, well then let's avoid the pit.
That's the whole point, Dave. You're making the point for me.
Well, I'm saying avoid the pit. It's not that I could die. It's that you make a heightened assessment.
You don't know if you could die. You could be the 100th person that didn't die. 100 people died.
What would be the payoff on that situation? I would rather build a bridge or go around the pit. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying live a meager existence and be all scared and humbled in your clan. I'm saying actually go outside, use your common sense, your deduction, and whatever else to figure out what things will highly probably wipe you out.
Okay, that's fine.
And then build systems around that to keep moving. That's where I'm going with.
And
so
that's fine.
It's a hybrid of what you're saying.
I'm saying that's fine. That works for you. All I'm saying is understand that that's your construct, and it's fine. I'm not judging it. I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. But 1,000 people didn't make it to space, right? 1,000 people didn't make it to space, but 1,001 person did, right? And so the logic mind would say 1,000 people didn't make it. Why are you going to do that again? Right? You don't know that you might be the one that has the breakthrough, but we choose to limit ourselves by our own comfort zones. And it's only just recognizing where your comfort zone is. Your comfort zone is I will die, but you don't know what that could be. You could be the anomaly, or you could be the one that found this is a unique combination, or whatever it is. No one is going to know when they will die. Even when you try to kill yourself, if it's not your time, you can't die. Right? People try to kill themselves all the time. Hey, they don't die. So there's no will die. We don't know what that is. That's the unknown factor. But can we put structures around it to say, well, you know what, the likelihood is I could, so I'm going to avoid this. And those are the lines I'm saying, but you have to see where your line is. My line is, okay, I'm going to backtrack from here, backtrack from here, backtrack from here to avoid this thing that you think might kill you, but you don't know. But you're going to avoid that, to avoid that, to avoid that, to avoid that, to avoid that. Next thing you know, you're in this little box. And all I'm saying is, for me, I'm now noticing where my lines are, and I'm reevaluating and assessing them to say, do this still work for me? And I don't want the criteria to be survival. Like, I want to have a different criteria for where my lines are. I don't know what that new principle is yet, but I want it to be something. I want it to be something more lofty than a survivalist motivation for me.
I mean, it's a difficult thing because I don't know what could be higher than that.
Love and truth can be higher than that.
They don't do anything for you if you're dead. I mean, you have to start with a baseline.
But that's your baseline.
But I'm just saying, it is my baseline, but I'm saying it's a baseline that makes sense.
For you.
For you to say, I'll be dead, but I'm going to have love on the top of my hierarchy. No, you got to be alive first. I mean, that's just the basics.
Do bungee jumping all the time, right? They want to push the limits of I could be dead.
That's not why they're bungee jumping. I disagree.
Well, that's why for the true adrenaline.
They want exhilaration, and I think part of that exhilaration is that it's dangerous. I get that.
And what's danger?
They don't think they'll be dead. That's why they wear safety lines and they do all kind of stuff.
Sometimes they don't, Dave. A true adrenaline junkie, you'll see them climbing a side of a
adrenaline. So that's what their hierarchy is: adrenaline, not death.
I understand, Dave, but what I'm saying is, what creates the adrenaline? The adrenaline is like I'm climbing a side of a mountain with no safety rope, right? Because they realize that could lead them to death.
No, they're not trying to die. I'm not. I refuse to believe.
I'm not saying they're trying to die.
That is what you're saying. You're saying that there's a real possibility that they can be dead, and that's what.
There is a possibility.
That's what makes it exciting for them, because they think at any minute I could be dead. No, that's not why they're doing it.
For some people,
they're doing it because they think it's exciting, not because they think they'll be dead, but because this is a fun activity. I feel the adrenaline of falling and flying and being free and whatever else. And yes, there's inherent risk, but I'm willing to take those inherent risks.
Constraints of I could die.
Oh no, I mean, we're not talking about that. I don't think it has anything to do with that.
I'm not saying it's a bad constraint. Because, I mean, obviously humans are still here because someone had some constraints on it.
It has anything to do with that. I mean, I understand the point you're trying to make, that there are comfort zones that we have, and those comfort zones are built by structures that we put on ourselves.
Yes.
And at some point, structures can become tyrannical. I mean, I think every structure is tyrannical to some degree, because that's the definition of structure.
And that's fine. And all I'm saying, the point that I'm trying to make is, like, seeing what's underneath the true motivation underneath the structure. I'm not saying structure is a bad thing. Like you said, structure is helpful and structure can reach your goals, blah, blah, blah. All I'm saying now is, let's see what's the motivation under the structure. And maybe there could be a different, for me, motivation besides fear. My structure. I'm choosing to not have fear as the basis of my structure. Now I have to sort of program myself, because a lot of what I do is motivated by a subconscious fear. And so now that I'm noticing it for the first time, it was like a blind spot. I'm saying, okay, am I doing this or avoiding this because of fear, or is there something else? Is there a higher motivating thing for me? And so now every time I see a structure, then I get to re-ask, what's my motivating factor for why am I doing this or avoiding this?
Okay, I'm for that. I think that's a good approach. As long as it doesn't tilt toward fear is bad or fear is not the way.
Well,
because they will go back to my integrative theory, which is that you're supposed to be integrating these subpersonalities, not denying them or calling them bad or whatever else. You integrate fear into your actual mode of being.
Yes.
You don't. You embrace the fear. You say, I do have fear, but there's something higher than fear that I'm using. I'm going to use fear to some degree.
Sure.
I'm not going to demonize it, but it sounds like you're demonizing fear, and you're saying, I won't have fear.
No. I'm not demonizing it. What I am recognizing is that I'm imbalanced. Fear is this much, and love and truth is that much. So I got to decrease this and go this way because it's imbalanced. I have too much stuff that's, if you ask me why, it's fear.
Right. So then it needs to be integrated.
A little bit of this, so I need a little more balance.
Integration. I'm saying integrate the fear.
That's fine. I'm not saying repress
don't
it.
Push it out. Don't suppress.
I'm not into suppressing. I'm not saying suppressing.
Okay. Well. You say that on the top end through your words, but I mean, for you to say I don't want fear to be whatever, and I think fear is completely unbalanced. That sounds like someone who's attacking fear itself and saying that fear isn't the way to go.
Well, here's the thing. So that's why, like, for example, this weekend, I was fearful about a lot of things that I was doing, but I did them anyway.
Good.
So I didn't repress them. I went into them so that they can dissolve themselves and then replace the fear with something else that was higher. So I am definitely not saying repress anything. But when I say I feel like it's too high, usually I say, oh, fear, I'm not going to do it. Fear, I'm going to survive. Fear, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying, even when I now recognize it's fear, I'm going to say, okay, what else can I use? Curiosity, love, courage. Something else can then be added on top of this thing. You know what I'm saying?
No, I believe that's a good approach. That is your best bet as a human being. Across the board, on not just fear, but anything. Any of these subpersonalities that you have inside of you. I mean, I think that's the gift that Freud gave. I mean, people these days in our modern, we don't like Freud anymore. He's only known for, oh, you're in love with your mother or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's what everyone thinks of it now. But what he did point out, which I think is his true contribution, is that you're not in control of your own house, so to speak. There are subsystems inside of you that are doing things that you're not aware of. And by increasing your awareness of these, by naming them, by naming these subpersonalities like aggression, sexuality, and fear, or whatever else, by naming them, bounding them, so to speak, then you can look at them. I mean, they're still very, very ancient systems that are pushing these things through you, so that you're gonna feel the burst. You know what I mean? I was talking about aggression with someone, and they're playing a video game or whatever it is, and and I'm saying, well, okay, you feel the burst. I mean, obviously that happens to you. It's something inside of you, right? So what do you do? And he's like, well, that's the best way to deal with it. Well, maybe there's other ways. I mean, like when you're 2 years old, that may have been the best way because you're beholden to, a feeling. But now you have something more than that you can. What else can you use? There's other tools.
Like
when
what?
you feel the burst, there's other tools you can use.
Like what? I mean, I'm curious. I really want to know because I don't know if there's any other better tools.
Well, I'm saying integration. I mean, let's talk about let's say a high-end athlete, right? They're competitive, so that is the aggressive subpersonality. So, but it's not all flippant and disorganized and whatever else. There's a discipline put onto the aggressiveness. You know what I mean? So that it's focused aggression, so that you're using that to accomplish the thing that you're actually trying to accomplish. So it's not suppressing aggression, as you're saying, or saying aggressiveness is bad or don't do that anymore, which is what I think you're pointing out what parents tend to do. A parent will come down and hear their kid screaming at the screen or whatever else. You're like, don't do that anymore. That's wrong. You're loud. You're not being socially acceptable. You know what I mean? So what do young men do? Well, they suppress that when they're around. You don't say bad words in front of your parents. You know what I mean? So you are actively suppressing yourself. I'm saying don't suppress.
Okay.
View the thing that you're aggressive, and that's good, and use focus and discipline to channel that energy. Like it's a primordial force that's driving you forward. That's why these Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and all these guys, there's a primordial force that's just pushing them. That's the aggressive personality underneath, but they've been able to harness that energy and figure out a higher end goal for themselves and then use that thing to push themselves forward. Like, so they'll take 1,000 jump shots a day. You know what I mean? Like you and I were too tired. I'll take 10. But they're so, I gotta, you know what I mean? That person thinks he's better than me or whatever it is, pushing them. I was drafted, you know, like Gilbert Arenas always gives this story about how he wasn't drafted in the first round, right? So, okay, you guys think I'm not good, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think I'm good. And so he said every day when he's out taking shots, all he could think about was, I'm in the second round. You know what I mean? So he would do everything in his power, use that anger towards something. So I'm saying do that with every subpersonality that you have. And obviously it's a little harder to do with others than some. I mean, I think a lot of men have like sexual issues. Talk about men are always dogs or whatever else. Well, because growing up as a young man, you were taught to suppress it. And so when you suppress, and this is what Freud let us know, when you suppress, it becomes a shadow. And this is Jung attached to this. He was a student of Freud. They were existing at the same time. Sure. When you suppress the subpersonalities by pushing down on them, they come into a shadow. And that shadow is actually the thing that's controlling you. And so their approach was that you have to take these things and then integrate. Now, that's, you said what specifically, how do you integrate? But I think that means you first do what you're saying, which is realize that they're there. And then once you've bound them, it's about bringing something to articulated form, you know, because that helps you bound it. And then when you bound it, you can look at it. And then once you can look at it, you can figure out a strategy on what to do. Otherwise, it's just bursts of energy happening to you, and you just think that's normal. You know, you're a perpetual 5-year-old for the rest of your life, emotionally.
Sure.
Because parents don't, I think that's really a downside. Let's say not all parents, but a lot of parents, they don't tell you how to handle that. They just say, don't do things. You know what I mean? So they're socialization agents is what parents have become. They're socialization agents instead of teachers.
Sure.
So, I think that's, to me, that ties into what you're saying, which is you grow up as a young person and you've been socialized. And that socialization is a structure that you're putting on yourself about how to be acceptable in the world. But it's very limiting. Let's keep you safe because other people will like you and you won't, whatever it is. You're not dead. You're surviving, so to speak. But there's this structure on top of you, and it doesn't let you get outside of that structure because all they told you was how to be socialized. And at some point, you have to say, I want to be beyond just socialization. I want to flourish, because the very thing that's keeping me safe is the very thing that's not allowing me to be my greatest potential. And I think the step past that isn't a demonization of survival per se. And maybe you weren't saying that. Maybe you were just trying to get to this point. And I got hung up on the whole survival word because I feel like that's the baseline of everything. But maybe you were just saying,
and like you said, flourish. Like
something more than just being socialized, because that to me that is the definition of repression, suppression. Because the world doesn't want to see this, and the world as a kid is your family, your parents, your aunts and uncles. The world doesn't want this, and so you do suppress. And I think you say you don't suppress, but I think maybe that's what you were saying. You were saying that you had to suppress because you were brought up in a way where people said, this is what's socially acceptable, and this is what's not socially acceptable. And it was never about who the true jewel could be. And there was no teaching about what are actual steps that you can do to harness the things inside that you're feeling, because every young person goes through this gamut of feelings of aggression and sexuality and anger and fear and all this sort of stuff, and then you get tilted toward that thing. And it sounds like you said that you were tilted toward fear.
Yes.
And you don't want that for yourself anymore.
Yes. Very good.
Something else.
Yeah.
But you haven't identified what that something else is, or?
No, I don't know, because I mean, I just recently became aware that that's what I was doing. So the comfort zone go-to is fear, survivalists, whatever word you think is a better word, repression, socialization. There you go.
Sure.
I've been my whole being has been socialization, and I've succeeded at socialization. I'm very socially acceptable in a lot of ways. But I also realize that there's a limitation to that, to me flourishing. And so I don't know what's on the other side of that, because now I have to face the fear of stepping beyond the fear to discover what's the true nature of Jewel, so that Jewel can flourish in that. So I haven't even done the next step yet. Right now it's just identifying what has been and seeing it. And then when things come up, asking the question to see what's the motivation behind it, to see if I do want to make a choice to go, in one direction or another.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
So it's an uncovering that's occurring. And the uncovering itself is a bit of I'm using the word scary process, but new, unusual, undocumented, experimental, with no real guidance.
Sure. So my advice would be, don't exactly what you're doing, apply awareness to it, but don't tilt yourself toward demonizing any one thing. Like even the socialization process itself, built into that existentially, is a positive and a negative hue. Like no matter what it is, there's a positive and a negative hue. Now, obviously for you, it was tilted in a certain way. So, but then just try to tilt it back within its own, with your awareness, and not by saying that it's bad, or you know what I mean. Like we have the tendency to say,
I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel like you're telling me play it safe, which I'm going to do anyway, because that's
well, I'm not saying play it safe per se. I'm saying don't tilt it toward the negative, to say this particular thing is negative.
But if it is,
it's negative for you, but existentially it's negative and positive. That's the philosophical overlay. No matter what that thing is in the world, built into that thing is a positive and negative hue.
Of course. I mean, that's fine. I guess.
So if you're only seeing it as a negative thing, that means that you're tilted toward that. I'm saying just be aware of that and try to tilt it back towards center. Don't say socialization is awful and my parents did this and blah, blah, blah. Say, well, it wasn't all it could be, but I learned a lot and, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think anything is awful, right? So I hope you're not getting the sense I say it's awful. All I'm saying is I'm recognizing the structures and the limitations of those structures, and I want to step beyond them. And I'm